as you're starting to reinvent yourself, you have to literally start telling yourself a new story and a new narrative about who you are in the world or about who you can become. And this is like so very important. Yo, Chris, man, what are you doing? What are you up to?
I'm just helping people reinvent their lives. No big deal.
Yeah, no big deal. Look, I'm going to join in. Cool.
God bless, we're breaking these runs. Life too short to play it on speed run.
All right, Todd, what are we doing today, man? What are we talking about?
Chris, man, I am so excited for this conversation. And if you're listening in, like, this is a big one because we're talking about identity. So important when you're at a place in your life where you're looking out into the future of your work and your career, and you're thinking, what's next? And a lot of what I've seen in all these years of coaching, and I know you have as well, and I know this topic is just so huge for you, is that we need to start looking at identity from two different standpoints, right? Number one is, well, what is an identity for our future self, our future career that we can start to understand and tap into? And how do we start to understand our old identity and where that really doesn't work anymore so we can start making that shift? Right. So I think when we talk about identity and shifting, this is like the deeper work in reinvention. And that's something that I know that you went through very deeply and something that you're helping a lot of people with right now.
Yeah. And I think this is one of those things where, like, when we say identity and identity shifting, I mean, obviously the word identity gets thrown around a lot, but it's like asking the fish, how's the water? And the fish says, what's water? Mm-hmm. Right. When we say your identity and shifting to a new identity, that second thing you said, the work of categorizing and identifying, like, what is your identity? For me, for 20 odd years, it's like corporate senior manager. I'm a husband, I'm a dad, I'm all these things. I'm the breadwinner, right? I think that's the type of stuff that we get into, is like, I'm the capital B breadwinner. What does that mean? Does that mean I must dutifully go to the same place from 9 to 5 every weekday? Or are there other ways to inhabit breadwinnerdom? Or are there other ways to spread the breadwinning among myself and my spouse and my partner? Like, that's the sort of thing I think we're talking about here in terms of identity, the identities that we take on, and how do we identify them first, and then do they still serve us?
Yeah, what I found in all these years is that most people don't even understand how they got to where they are right now. And that's why reinvention is like this word that I really love, because a lot of people that I've worked with get to the point where, like, how did I get here? I've won the game in a lot of ways. Yeah. You know, I've done the career, I've made the money, I have a family, or maybe in some areas I'm still working on it, but I've done pretty well. I've checked boxes in my life. And now I'm here at this point, and I'm like, well, this doesn't give me the level of fulfillment that I thought I would have, right? And so now you come into this idea of, okay, well, what's reinvention? In this podcast and in our work, we talk about a lot of tools, like practical stuff, tactical stuff. But this notion of identity is really important, because let's remember, like, the whole point of this is this notion that at any moment in time, you can take a stand for yourself and look out into the future and say, you know what? My next career choices, my next work can be my best when I make a conscious choice to design it around the version of myself that I'm really happy about, that I'm excited about, that matches my money making with my lifestyle, for example, and not who I was in the past. And I think it's that dichotomy of identity when we're looking at, okay, there is this past version of me and there's this potential future version of me. And when we're reinventing, it's an opportunity more than anything else to say, all right, I'm going to take a stand for creating that vision of my future, and also putting to bed maybe some old patterns or ways of being that really don't serve me any longer.
I'll also offer, for me personally, there is an idea of, yes, reinvention, but rediscovery as well, right? As you're talking about sort of that stumbling into things and not moving with intention, I was just thinking of the Talking Heads song, you know, like, how did I get here? Like, oh my God, what have I done? Right? This is not my beautiful house.
Actually, can you sing that for me a little bit? Because it would be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, let the days go. I'll put the big gray suit on. Actually, everybody should go listen to that song right now, by the way. That's the dilemma that a lot of us are facing. It's like, how did I get here? And for me, I made some choices around my mid-early 20s where I was doing what I thought I was supposed to do. I was doing the right thing, dutifully going into this work. And it never really fit me, but I did it for a long ass time and I did it successfully. And so for me, when I came out the other side of that and started my reinvention, there was a lot of identifying and shedding layers of that identity that had been built up for that. And it was bringing me back to really who I was in my core, which there are elements of that 18-year-old or that 12-year-old in there and what that guy wanted. They surface as part of this. For people who are listening or watching, I think what that alludes to is that this is deep work and some stuff's going to come up as you do this, for sure.
Let's talk about how do we do it. What I love about this part of the process is there actually is a process here for understanding this new identity and also starting to, it's not like an automatic thing, shed the layers, like you said, of this old self. And there's just two parts to the sentence, right? Understanding who this reinvented version of yourself is or can be. And it's got to start, you'll hear it's like a broken record of getting clarity, of taking some time to sense into what your life and what your work could be like if you would just, for a moment, as an exercise, think idealistically about what's possible. We always say this life is so short, right? And we get stuck into these ways of being and ways of thinking and ways of making money and ways of earning and all this stuff and ways that other people view us. And now we get to this point of reinvention and you're like, well, what would it be like for me to make a shift? What would it be like for me to think more optimistically and more open-minded about what's possible? And we have to start there because in order to really reinvent, you need that vision. You need that idea of what's possible because it serves as fuel for getting you through the harder part, which is the second thing, which we're going to talk about how do we start to heal and move away from some of these old patterns or ways of being, which is kind of the harder work, right? Of actually changing things that have been ground into our mind and ways of being for 20, 30 years.
Going back to that idea of the fish in the water, things that are so innate and intrinsic to the way we've been for so long that we can't even notice or name them. They are just the ecosystem in which we exist. It involves an element of detachment, of zooming out, of being able to press pause. And this is a really hard thing for people. I mean, again, corporate guy here, you're so busy that during the week all day long and then trying to get through your meetings and then trying to get your work done at night with your kids and all that stuff. When do you take this time? You know, it's really important to consciously protect this time to do this bigger picture, heavy lifting. This is not light stuff, right? We've had the privilege to help a lot of people do this and go through it. And it's unbelievable when you can do this, but it's a process. It's a commitment. It's effort.
And I would say to start the process, and let's just stay in this first standpoint of let's spend some time listening to this right now. This is how I coach people. And I think you do something similar. Spend some time, whether it's a day or a weekend, ideally, and just get out a pen and pad, get out your computer and limit all the distractions as much as you can in your life and start to think idealistically about what is possible for your life. What future would make you really excited?
I'm going to actually stop you for 1 sec. What is possible? I know what you mean by that, Todd, but I don't know that everybody else knows what you mean by it. So I want to be clear about it. What is possible, but without bringing constraints into the conversation, at least from the beginning? Because I think the first thing that comes up for so many people when you say what is possible is they're like, well, I couldn't do that because money reason or this reason or that reason. I'm 5'10" and I'm 46. An NBA basketball player isn't on the list. Right. But besides the top things like that, all bets are off. It's all in the mix.
You need to give yourself a moment in time to reinvent your permission to dream. Allow yourself to dream just for a moment, just for an exercise, without attachment to any of it having to come true. That's the key thing. And it's interesting because some people like really flow into that exercise very easily and they write all the stuff and they have a really clear vision and it's easy for them. For most people, it isn't that easy. It actually takes a little bit of time, which is why I recommend dedicating a day or a weekend or even longer to working on a document or a series of videos or some journaling where you're literally allowing yourself to think idealistically within the frame of some sense of reality, right? Like, okay, I'm not going to be an NBA basketball player. I'm not going to go and win a gold medal in the 100-meter dash. Okay, that's not going to happen. But what would make me really fulfilled? What kind of work? Who am I when I am at my very best? When I'm in flow, and I've been my best version, who is that person? And how can I now start to tap into those qualities consciously and start aligning my money making and my future career decisions based on that guy or woman? So that way I can really have some deeper sense of fulfillment. And it is a moment to dream. It's a moment to think idealistically within the context of some sense of reality.
Yeah, and I think to help people frame it up a little bit in that some sense of reality thing, there's lots of people we've both worked with where the thing they said like, oh, this is just my hobby, I could never turn this into something, blah, blah, blah. I'm not telling people that they all have to monetize their hobbies, but I am telling people that we have worked with many people who like, well, in a dream, I would be an instructor for whatever, pickleball. And it's like, that's the business. That is the business. That's the real thing. I say to the people I coach, I say, hey, when the objections are inevitably coming up as you're trying to do this exercise, I'd like you to move away and not hear them. But actually what might be better to do is to hear them, write them down, put them somewhere else, put them on another tab or another page or whatever, but don't engage with them now. We will, in our reinvention community, or if you're working with a coach one-on-one or whatever it is, we will get there. We will get to the taking the big picture dream and addressing the tactical requirements and realities, but now is not the time for that.
It's exactly right. You got to start there. And if we're just going to speak totally honestly, just the state of the world as we're doing this podcast, a lot of us are going to be in situations where we really do have to think more creatively and out of the box. This conversation is an invitation to take this on with some level of intention, some level of, dare I even say it, fun. Oh my God. Can you imagine having a career that might actually be fun?
What are you talking about?
Yeah. I mean, this is what I get. This is what I hear all the time. It's like people will look at me like, I never thought about it that way. And so that's why it's so important for this is you got to start there. You got to free yourself just for a moment. And then we'll get to the tactics, like you said. Then we'll get to, okay, well, maybe some of this stuff could come true. I love doing that. People start telling me their dreams and you gave me that exercise, but now I'm interested in how do I make some of this happen? Okay, well, good. That's the natural next step that we'll get to. But I think what we want to focus on today, and I want to hear your story on this, Chris, because I know for you, you really went through this identity shift of moving away from a 20 plus year, like big corporate guy, right? Moving over into being a coach. And this notion of getting the vision is great and like taking action, all that. But how about dealing with the reality, which is there's all these remnants of this old self and this old identity that still probably exists for you and like still are going to exist for me and others. How do we start to heal and transform these older parts of ourselves so that way we can fully free ourselves to new possibilities?
How much
Small
time
question, tiny
How
little
much
question.
time you got, Todd?
Yeah,
that's I like to start with owning it. Owning it meaning I can look back and say, maybe I'll put myself back 10 years ago, right? And I can say when I was in my mid 30s, looking back and saying, oh man, I should have tried music or comedy. I should have leaned in more to that. I didn't do that because I had this corporate staid persona that I was doing. I had my reasons and my moments, and there were decisions I was making along the way that whether they were right or wrong, they made sense to me in the context in which I made them. And I own that and I accept that and I'm here and process the shame around it or the guilt or, the unachieved potential or whatever baggage I personally had around that and accept that and not running away from sort of the guilt or the shame or the regret part of it, accepting it, processing it. I mean, we could have a whole conversation about just what that means.
Well, let's talk about it a little bit because it goes into the whole notion, the practice that we have in our community of allow and reflect. As you know, I worked with Tony Robbins. Tony's like, one of the biggest personal development gurus out there. And he's very, very strong around follow your plan, not your mood. Like you keep going. Like in some sense, you kind of squash any of the negative thoughts, any of the doubt or limitation that creeps up in our mind, any of the fear. But the reality is, in my view, is that when we're going through a process of reinvention, there is value in allowing these old parts to have their voice and have their say. And so when we talk about allow and reflect, which is what I think you're referring to here, it's kind of like as you're doing this work to get a vision and maybe taking some new action and having some conversations and getting a coach or joining a community or listening to a podcast like this, you do want to segment some time to the healing process and to allow the shame, the guilt to have a say with some context, because that will allow you to move through the process faster as opposed to just pounding it away, which in my opinion doesn't work because it'll come out in some other ways that usually aren't that healthy.
We're Todd and Chris, and this is the Reinvention podcast, and we're here to say, you're wrong, Tony Robbins.
Man, if he hears us.
There's like a Tony Robbins-sized hole in my door right now. He just crashed through it.
Oh, yeah. And you don't want to fight that guy, by the way.
He's about 40% bigger than me.
And let me tell you, man, I interviewed him twice. And the first time I interviewed him, I asked him one question and it was 45 minutes of him going off. And let me tell you, that guy, I love him. He drops gems, but I don't agree with him in that one thing. I think that to really reinvent, you have to be holistic in your thinking. You have to allow yourself to be your full human. I think a lot of people that are talking about stuff like this don't allow for that. And I think we have to allow for this old part of you to have its last breath as you're reinventing and as you're allowing and putting more energy and intention into this new version of yourself, right? It's a process. It doesn't happen like that.
That's such a good way of putting it, to give that voice to it, let it hear it, right? Have it have its last say. I talk sometimes around when we have these internal negative voices or even just clinging to old identity, whatever it might be. I kind of like invite him to the campfire, right? And I hear them all and I give them their say. And I don't have to take what they say as fact or as truth. I mean, this goes to this idea of all the thoughts we have and how they're just thoughts, but hear them out. Don't run away from them because they will pop up and sabotage you if you try to do that.
Let's talk about some tools like to actually do that. Because I know you and I are both big morning page guys, free writing. I know that's big for you. You're a writer. Julia Cameron wrote this book, The Artist's Way. It's a really great book. If you've never read that, it's really good. And in that book, she made this practice of morning pages really famous, which is just every morning getting up and allowing yourself to write, getting whatever is coming up. It could be good, it could be negative, whatever it is. You want to be able to allow yourself to be yourself and move through. And I'll tell you that in doing this practice for years, I found that if I start off and allowing myself to feel the fear or feel negativity or express something where I'm frustrated or I'm unsure, and I just allow myself the ability to write it out or even talk it out. We'll talk about self-talk as well. It always ends up that part goes to bed. It has its say. And then I get to, okay, like that's done. The little crying baby boy inside of me is done complaining. And now I can like be this more sober adult and think, okay, well, what's next? What do I need to do now? I found that to be the case when I do this. Have you found that as well? Or what's the process been like for you?
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is real coach stuff. But for me, I really leaned into morning pages and free writing, kind of right around the time I was starting my reinvention in earnest. Almost always this is where it gets coachy. There's a somatic clearing, right? If you feel tension in your chest or your shoulders or your neck or whatever, and you sort of let this out in the morning and you just kind of, whatever's on your mind. By the way, don't look at your cell phone before you do this, right? Roll out of bed, grab your cup of coffee, whatever you do, let it out right off the bat. That's the way this works. I find that you give it its voice, you give it its moment, you let it clear. A lot of times I get a lot of great creativity out of this practice as well, because you're just kind of like unblocking the gunk that is in there. Right. Cognitively and whatever's accumulated overnight. When you finally reduce the stimulus outside enough to let your brain process all the stuff it's been ruminating on, it's really clearing and freeing. And then now you can just go about your day in a more practical and tactical way without being haunted by whatever that lingering.
Yeah, it's a proper way to do it. Otherwise, it's messy. And these thoughts pop up all the time and you're kind of in ambiguous land. I want to talk about self-talk, and I know this is something that I mentioned to you, and I've coached a lot of people to do this. The free writing is great, but what I started doing was, I'm more verbal, if you can't tell, that's why we're doing a podcast, but I started to get out my phone and put on my earbuds and go for a walk. So people that see me think I'm talking to like my sister or something, but really what I'm doing is I'm doing this. I'm doing free talk, and I'm allowing myself, sometimes if I'm in a bad mood, I'll just like go and I'll talk. Whatever wants to come out. And sometimes it's very creative and sometimes it's around business, like whatever it is. And I do this almost every day. And it almost always, when I talk it out, lands into optimism, ideas about what I should do next, to the point where I started to record these talks. Every day, I literally hit record. And more often than not, I'm so inspired by the end of it that I come back and I'm using AI tools now, and I create a transcript, have it turned into bullet points, and then there you go. Things like this podcast was probably started from me going out and just talking to myself. And I think it's almost like self-therapy in a way, where you're just allowing yourself to process information so that way you can get to the juice. If you have the intention to like, oh, well, I want to get to a point where I'm moving forward and I'm optimistic, this is a great way to do it.
I don't think writing is necessarily for everybody. I mean, I know I've sat down with people who I'm coaching and I've seen it in their eyes when they're like, you want to write a journal every day or whatever it is. I do think the self-talk is great. I've actually been doing more of it lately too, because it's faster.
Yeah,
it is faster and it comes out. But I think that a couple keys to it are, one, it's ungoverned. You're expressing it. You're not trying to come up with anything. You're not trying to say something clever or pithy or smart or mind-blowing. The way I describe it, it's like word vomit. There's no outcome that is good or bad or positive or negative about any specific time that you do this. Because like Todd, you were saying, and this happens for me a lot, I get great creative ideas from it, or I have a breakthrough or whatever. It is goalless. There is no goal to this except to say it, to express it, to let it out, to write it, whatever your method is. The goal is really actually to give yourself the time, and whatever happens, happens. And in the writing format of it, I tell people, if you're like, I can't think of what to write, then write, I can't think of what to write over and over again until something else starts coming out.
I've totally done that. Or I'm like,
Yes.
I'm frustrated, and I just keep writing it. That's the exercise. It's rewriting.
Just literally just go. I mean, again, Julia Cameron's is very specifically like the pen is moving on the page the entire time. Like you never stop. I do think the talking is conducive to that.
It's the same thing
as well.
I love that.
This is a good segue into a bigger element of this identity shifting, which is that approaching whatever this process is for you without attachment. Without attachment to, a lot of us are used to white knuckling and steering our way towards a goal. And what's really different and scary about reinvention writ large and identity shifting specifically is you don't know what the goal is. You don't know what you're going to look like and what's going to be revealed or created in a year or two or whatever this is. The mistake we make is to try to sit here and think our way to what that outcome is and then plot our way very meticulously there. There is time for plotting and planning, but when you're in the beginning, feel what pulls you and pull threads and explore without attachment.
There's so much wisdom in that. To be able to develop this quality of non-attachment or detachment is so very powerful. And it sounds so much different than what we were all taught how to do. We're going for goals and we need to get those goals. And there is value in that. There's total value in using willpower and going for goals. We're just saying that a more holistic approach is to also honor this other side where you are going through your process and you're not attached to any results. And the most successful reinventors, the most successful people I've ever been around, know how to dance with those two attributes of their humanity. They know how to push, they know when to push, and they know when to allow and reflect. And you're constantly dancing between those things. And when we're talking about morning pages or self-talk, it's a process that you always have access to get access to information. And I think another way, another tool here that we want to also think about, which is hard for a lot of reinventors, is to also ask for and get support from other humans, right? And this one is a little bit tricky when you're in reinvention, because oftentimes the people that you talk to the most may not be able to give you the mental or emotional support that you need, because they may be invested in your old identity, right?
More than maybe.
more than me. Like if you're married, like going to your partner and saying, I'm not doing that job anymore. I'm going to go out and open up this coffee shop or whatever it might be. Well, that causes a big ruckus, right? And of course, those conversations may need to happen depending on where your reinvention goes. But the most important thing on this tool, at least in the beginning, is before you start vomiting all over people who are going to have a really hard time with what you're going through right now, is to be smart about this and to externalize and find third-party sources where you can actually share about what's coming up for you in a safe environment. Now, that could mean getting a counselor or even a therapist, right? Or it could mean getting a coach, someone like me and you. Or it could mean finding a group of accountability partners or a community. It's like literally why we built the Reinvention community, right? So a safe place for people who are in that moment in time is like, man, what's the next 20, 30 years look like for my career? Maybe I know, maybe I don't know, but I need to explore this. It's a very safe place to do that. But we're saying it here because it's very important for you to look at community or other people as potential tools. And you got to be smart about who you can trust depending on where you're at in the stage of reinvention.
There's so much that's coming up as you say this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I had a coach tell me this once, which really stuck with me. Be careful where you share your gold. I mean, listen, Todd, let's be honest, right? I'm 5 years into this thing or whatever it is. There's still some people really close to me in my life who are kind of like, how's your little coach thing going?
Right.
Is that going okay? And I'm like, thanks so much for your ostensible support, but that's really undermining and negative and not helpful. But it's actually not meant that way. You have to sort of beware some of the people who love you the most, because some of the people who love you the most are most attached to that identity. They love you. They love the you that they know. And you're, by definition, if you're listening this far into this podcast, by definition, you are interested in the possibility of creating and revealing a different identity in a sense that they do not know. They're going to still love you, by the way. They're going to love you now, and they're going to love you in the messy middle, and they're going to love you when you come out on the other side, but they're not going to understand you.
Right.
And the way they try to support you and love you may not be what you need in this axis of transformation that you're going through.
Yeah.
One specific thing I'll mention, I talked about that role of capital B breadwinner that I had and have, right? I have a very supportive wife. I'm, blessed. We've had a lot of conversations. I can only do the thing that I've done because of all the conversations we had and the support I got from her. But you want to be really careful around how you might frighten someone. You might really upset someone or traumatize them even. I don't think it's too much of an exaggeration to use that word. If you're the breadwinner and you're the solo breadwinner, let's say, and you just walk in one day and go, you know what? I think I'm going to go do whatever. I'm going to be a dance teacher or whatever it is. That's like a totally different thing for you. You don't want to sort of go into that lightly. So that's where I think having this space where you have a community or where you have a safe space to explore or a coach or...
Especially in the beginning.
Yeah. When you're ideating, we're asking you to get a little weird and creative. Don't come home and say to your spouse, like, hey, I'm going to quit my job at the bank and be an astronaut.
You got to be smart around this. And I think I've seen this in all my years of coaching. People kind of struggle with this one because they don't know who to share with or how to share. And they go to the people that are closest to them, which makes a lot of sense. This is why in Reinvention, you have to be, and it's not incentive, it's actually how you love people the most. You don't want to put them into a really uncomfortable situation. There's other people. We can help you. The other people can help you. There's other people in the same boat. Find safe spaces to be able to process, especially in the beginning stages of reinvention, what you're doing. When you start sharing, it also gives them, they're thinking this through. They're getting support. This is more of a thing now. Like you actually have a different stature around it, which goes to the next point, the next tool actually, in terms of reinvention and creating your new identity. And as you're going through this a little bit more, and I love this one because people don't think about it this way, it's all around communication, right? And as you're starting to reinvent yourself, you have to literally start telling yourself a new story and a new narrative about who you are in the world or about who you can become. And this is like so very important and beautiful when people start to grok this, right? Because You may have a story. Let's just say, okay, I've been, a lawyer for the last 20 years, working with this small healthcare startup that was shown to me by a friend of a friend. It's kind of a side hustle right now, but maybe there's some legs there. And when you start to have these new things that are emerging, which is so important in today's world, I'm a stand for people exploring multiple streams of revenue, right? And as you're doing that, I want you to start thinking about what language can you start developing about who you are in the world, right? And I think one of the fastest ways to start to get through your reinvention is to literally start writing down sentences or start practicing speaking when someone meets you at a party. What will you say as this reinvented version of yourself? It's a real accelerator.
I was just gonna say, I struggled with this so much. I'm kind of
A lot of people do. A lot of people struggle with this.
Like, I say this all the time. Reinvention concepts and the community that we have created, Todd, and that we're running, it's what I wish I had 10 years ago. That's why I'm so excited for people to get to experience it now. I stumbled and bumbled through all this stuff. Honestly, even the stuff around sort of talking to your spouse or your partner around it, go back one topic. I'm thinking of my wife listening to this podcast being like, hey, you didn't do that. Like, you were a little bit, willy-nilly with it in the beginning. And then I think I kind of caught myself and realized, hold on, let me go back to the woodshed and get more clear about what this is before I stress her out with all this. So I learned that through experience. Similarly with talking about what I do, again, in the beginning, I didn't know what I did, right? So I was pulling threads and following threads. And I really got to the point where I could crisply talk about what it is I do. But it took a lot of really painful conversations with people where I kind of thought, I was like, I'm going to say that I'm a coach in this conversation. And then I would say it. And then I was like, oh, I'm 3 little kids in a trench coat. Like, I don't have a line behind that when they ask their first question. Because I haven't really thought it through and I haven't really been super clear about it. And I can help anybody with anything, I think. Like, it was real ugly, right?
It's ambiguous. It's like weird.
Yeah. Coaching is hard in that way in general, right? People have preconceived notions of what it is. So you really want to have a crisp answer, but this applies in like so many different categories.
The reason why we're going through these tools, like self-talk, right? Asking for support, communication, is to accelerate your ability to reinvent yourself. Again, when I have clients in our community, I'm like, the goal for me is always successful reinvention. You've created a new career path where you make as much, if not more money than you did before. And it's more closely aligned with the future that really excites you, and that could be because you're passionate about it, or it's just using your skills, or it's more connected with what your real purpose here is. Like, ooh, dare we say that you have a purpose and you can make money doing that thing. And so these tools, when we're talking about them, the whole point of this is, it's like what you just said. You said, I wish I would have had this 10 years ago. Yeah, now we're just systematizing it in a way. And what I love about this idea of reinvention is that it's actually just a process of transformation or transition that has a predictable nature to it. And, as coaches, and I've been doing this for so long, it's like, the terrain, but you don't know it when you're in it. But when you observe it from that standpoint, you can say, all right, well, here are the tools that will work to help you understand yourself better, to get into a situation or create situations that are more exciting for yourself and make it easier for those around you as you're changing your life to some extent. These are just tools to be able to do that.
I love that last part, Todd, and you said it before, and I'm glad you reemphasized it too. It's not selfish, right? It's actually caring for the people that love you the most and care for you the most as well. I mean, one, on a macro level, doing what's right for you and finding what's aligned for you, you're going to show up in ways that you never did before for the people in your life that really matter to you, right? And we'll talk about this at different times, but just for me with my children, with my wife, what they get from me now that I am in a more aligned work and space. I mean, unbelievable.
What do they get from you? More presence? Like, what is it?
More presence, more truth of who I am. And they get the fullest version of me. I mean, they get a more expressive and kind of fun and goofy version of me that really is me, because I'm not sort of having my spirit broken from 9 to 5 days a week, right? My kids can tell you what I do now, right? I mean, they couldn't tell you what I did before because I got bored even trying to explain it to them, And I think now they're like, oh, daddy helps people and he helps them get a job that they like. And they can say it because I talk about it at the dinner table with such pride.
I love that, man. It's so relevant. If you got to this point, we're going to close this conversation out right now. We can slice and dice this forever. Chris and I could talk about this for 9 hours right now, but that's really powerful that your kids can reflect back. You have done that part we just talked about, communication, really clearly, because when it's ambiguous to other people, it's ambiguous most likely to yourself. That's why these tools help. Spending time to actually get clarity, like we talked about, spending time to get the assistance you need, whether it's a counselor, a therapist, a coach, our community, whatever it might be, finding accountability partners, spending time writing out what is your reinvention look like when you're at your best, and then starting to share that with others. Like, this is how you make it real. You're starting to make it real by taking consistent and constant action. And that's what we're stand for. We want people to live their best freaking life, and we're living in a crazy world. We have no idea what's happening, but you have an opportunity. We all have an opportunity to reinvent ourselves right now. And so that's why we're committed to this conversation. Yeah, man, I just love jamming with you too, man. It's always helpful for me when we do this. Yeah.
It's always so helpful for me to remind myself why I'm doing this and get so excited about it. And I really hope that some people who are listening or watching get inspired, get excited, and maybe start taking some action.
Yeah. And we will see you all next time. Feel free to check out our community. We do a lot of coaching calls. We love to get on the Zoom with human beings and hear what they're up to and help them with whatever it is, just the starting part of reinvention, or it could be you're hanging your own shingle and you got to figure out marketing, you got to figure out naming. We're doing all kinds of conversations, money, a lot of conversations around money, and we get real specific with people around this process. So definitely consider checking that out and getting to know us a little bit. All right, until next time, peace out.